Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Sorry, that was a little madness to get started, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Spanish and English.
Spanish and English. Last time, I did not record the English. Thank you, Mark. Full disclosure, I just want to let everybody know I'm a little bit under the weather today. You can hear it in my voice. I'm okay. It's just been a lot this week. So my body's telling me, like, you're ready for it. Next slide, please. I want to give a big thank you to Walters, the center, our interpreters, and the staff that have been helping out. David, Mark, Kim, Maria, who couldn't be here today, and Mandy and Megan as well. So for anybody that is watching at home that would like interpretation, you hit the little globe on the bottom, you can switch it to Spanish, and that should take you to the Spanish session. We're going to be recording in English and Spanish. Little housekeeping, logistic. Next slide, please. Where are they?
Bathrooms are downstairs across from the elevator.
Bathrooms are downstairs across from the elevator.
Also, two on the top floor.
Also two on the top floors as well. There is some water in the back if you need refill water bottles. There's some water in cups that you can utilize. Again, as I said last time, you're welcome to just kind of go wherever you need to, whenever you need to. Appreciate you all being here in this space. The last time we met was much more just like throw information at you session. And so appreciate you all being with me through that. This session is going to be much more discussion-based, group-based. There's going to be a little bit of information at the beginning, data analysis, things along those lines. But we wanted to have some time built with some intentional relationships early. So I'm excited about that. A reminder for those who are not being paid to be here by an organization of some sort, see me at a break and we'll get you filled out to get another card. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, no, go back. Our agreements for today, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. We want to make sure that we're participating with intention. We appreciate the diversity of perspectives, maintain a respectful space, and create opportunities for everyone to engage. And we listen to understand. That's just to help us to keep respect in the space. We're talking about this topic that is like this. All right, so today we're going to be doing a bit of centering and introduction exercise. Again, to get to know each other a little bit more. I'm going to talk about the goals for this session. We're going to do some context setting, some data review. I did a lot of data analysis. We did a lot of data analysis over the last week. And so we've got some kind of interesting things to pull out of that. Share if you want engagement we did online and in-person surveys. We'll have lunch. Other people didn't email me back. So hopefully we want lunch. And then after lunch, we'll be all the consensus building workshop will be coming out of this, hopefully with some consensus around the ordinance. Next slide, please. Okay, so Senator Dan will start with this quote from City Childs. And he says, "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sake and for our own." And I just felt that was a good, powerful quote and it gave us a set of the spirit today. Next slide, please. All right, so for our introduction today, I'm going to have us up and moving around a little bit. And just, I'm not going to make it through by hour or anything like that. We're okay. But I'm going to have us get up one at a time, write your name on one of these cards, and then put the card in. So yeah, I'm gonna have us in a little semicircle today. I would have us in a circle if we could. This doesn't make sense with the screen, but I want to kind of all own this space together. And so by doing this, we're going to be putting a little bit of something that we are contributing to this space in the space. And so how we're going to do this is there's index cards that are different colors. If anyone's colorblind, I apologize. Just let me know and I'll point the one that makes sense. So I want you to grab an index card that matches the color that you feel best represents why you're here, right? So if you are a service provider, you have a red card. Business or neighborhood representative, grab your card, grab a green card. If you are government staff, grab a yellow card. If you have lived experience in houselessness or housing insecurity, grab a blue card. Or if there's something that I missed, some other way you're here representing, grab a purple card. And I just want you to write your name on it and then just set it on this stool right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start on one side and we're going to just pass the mic around. Should be another mic. Test. Cool.
You don't want any of the others, you just want to read.
Yes.
All of
No, we're going to want all that. And so when you get the mic, I'll have you introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, who you're here representing, and then why you chose the card that you did. Okay, so you want to start? You come up here. Yeah, we gotta have you start thing. This is our attendance sheet for today, essentially.
Oh, sorry.
Mhm. And write your name on it.
So my name is Rebecca Johnson, and I am representing someone with lived experience and a community member. I'm formerly employed in the red service provider. She, her.
Thank you. And you can just do first name, that's fine. And we can pass the mic and leave that there.
My name is Steve, he, him, working for the homeless, and I'm choosing blue card because I was homeless last year.
If you can sign your name on the card, leave it on the chair.
I'm Ryan, I use he, him pronouns, and I work at Safe Place, which is a homeless youth and runaway youth shelter here in Hillsboro. So I'm choosing a red card.
And just first names are fine. I'm going to be using these as so.
Tina Bailey, I'm choosing yellow because I work for the Public Works Department. She, her.
Steve Crouchide, I'm choosing green, I work at Hillsboro Medical Center. He, his pronouns.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Barry Johnson Smith. My pronouns are he, his, him, and I'm representing the Black Advisory for this council. So I think I'll choose the green card.
Hi, everybody. Chris Berry. I'm going to choose the yellow card. I work in the planning division of the city, and my pronouns are he, him.
Good morning. I'm Linda Osuna. She, her, AF pronouns. I represent the city of Hillsboro, work at the library. And why I choose this card is part of the library services. We do our missions for everyone. And just double check. Work for everyone and everyone is welcome in our space.
Good morning. Kim Marshall, Project Homeless Connect, she, her pronouns. I am choosing red because they pay me.
I'm Matt. I'm with Hillsboro Police, Crisis Intervention Officer. I'm going to pick yellow.
Why did you do that?
Because I'm with the government.
All right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ken Piper. I work for the city's Parks and Recreation Department, so I will choose yellow. My pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Grace Boyle. I work with the Hillsboro Police. I'm a business liaison on the community engagement team. And I am picking yellow because I am also government.
Hi, guys. Okay, I'm you're right. My name is Jessica. I use she, her pronouns. I am picking blue because I do have lived experience with homelessness, and I'm honored to say because of that experience, I now work for Project Homeless Connect. So I'm also red. So
My name is Dennis. My pronouns is him. Representing the homeless, and I'm choosing the blue card because I am homeless living the experience.
My name is Jeff. Look very government right now, because I work for the fire department, and I am picking the yellow card. And I shouldn't walk too far away.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia O'Donnell. I live in the neighborhood, Main Street neighbors. So I guess I'm representing the neighborhood and downtown businesses occasionally. My color card would be green.
Hi, I'm Chris Chandler. I'm in yellow because I work at County Probation and Parole.
Hi, my name is Person Gonzalez, email pronouns. I'm representing the housing department at Centro Cultural, and I'm doing service provider.
Good morning. My name is Beth. I'm with the Family Justice Center of Washington County. I am going to pick the red card, and my pronouns are she and her.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina. I use she, her pronouns. I am here representing Sequoia Mental Health. We have an office here in Hillsboro. Additionally, I actually live on Main Street, so technically I could also be a green card, but I am going to select the red card because I'm here representing our awesome organization.
My name is Dee. I use they, them pronouns. I am here representing the Washington County Crisis Team, Crisis Services, and I will choose a red card.
Thank you. And to make sure I don't leave anybody out in terms of introductions, I want to make sure we introduce ourselves. So I'm Marcus Ford. You see in him pronouns. I'm with I'm the community engagement manager for the city of Hillsboro. And I was choosing a card. I would choose a yellow card.
David Vaughn with the Hillsboro Police Department Community Outreach Team, and I would choose the yellow card.
And then we have our three interpreters over here, 2 and 1 in training. And I'll have you introduce yourself as well.
I'm Nan Tonda. I'm an interpreter. My pronouns are she, her. And I would choose all of the cards.
Martin Conta, Spanish interpreter. I would select business card, so a green card, and we represent Panza Inc. serving Verbio this morning.
My name is Alan Nunez, he, him pronouns. With the interpreter, so I probably pick other.
Thank you. Mark, do you have a mic up there?
Yes, I am Mark. I work for the city. I'm an audiovisual technician. He, him pronouns, and I would choose the yellow card, but I'm all the way up here, so I'll fill that out later.
All right. Thank you all. I just want to confirm everybody's card is in the middle. No one's holding on to a card. Well, some people. Perfect. Next slide, please. All right, so the goals for today, as we're doing this meeting, we have goals that I want to come out of this meeting with, and also have our goals on the right here, left of the slide, that I want you to like experience in this session today. So first, I want us to be able to identify areas of improvement in the draft ordinance, right? That's really why we're here. And then I want us to be able to share insight and experience consensus around this super relevant topic. And then in terms of our experiential goals, I want all of us to feel empowered to speak our truth on this subject. And I want everyone to feel heard as well, which we space. So that's kind of my goals and my intent for today is all that up there. Yeah, so I just kind of appreciate us all honoring and respecting each other and our diversity of opinions, thoughts, and all that within the space. So why are we here? This is a very bad slide. It's trying to take the 100 slides from last session and put it all into one. So I'm gonna read through it. Not great. People that did their presentations were way better than what I put on the slide, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So House Bill 3115, which was signed in 2021, provides that local law regulating sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property that is open to the public must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, and manner with regard to persons experiencing homelessness. That was a very short representation of all of the chat presentation. Hillsboro municipal codes need to be updated in light of these recent court decisions and House Bill 3115. We are currently in a housing crisis with limited access to affordable housing, options. Collaboration and partnership are essential to addressing this issue with compassion. That was something that David said a lot during his presentation, the importance of compassion as we're working through this. So these last 2 points of mine, community input is important for council when making policy decisions that will impact our community. And then using a collaborative process to build consensus creates a deeper understanding of the issue and reinforces the importance of relationships within the community. I haven't said this already, but I think just let me put your hand, yell at me, whatever. Next slide, please. Okay. So David, at this point, I'm gonna have you switch to regular view. Yep. So we do have some. So we did a lot of surveys, a lot of text in those surveys to get us to this data analysis piece that we did. And so I did like a word cloud of all of those things, every single word that was written. And it was almost 900 survey responses. And so there was a lot there. And so what I did is I put this into a word cloud and we can see the obvious things that jump out, right? We have homeless and people, right? Those are the real big ones that jump out to me. But I just want to kind of go around and feel free to just, I guess you don't necessarily need the mic, but feel free to shout out what you see that pops out to you. Maybe through your voice. And then we'll use the mic because I want you to say a word about, like say, like I see can, right? What does that mean to me? Why do I see that? Why am I drawn to that? So if anybody wants to start, Right.
What I see is homeless and people are bold because homeless people are, of course, people, and we're all equal.
Love it. Thank you.
I see the word place. Most of us are fortunate to have a place. We're talking about people who don't and what we need to do for them.
Thank you.
I see the word safe, which is the goal for everyone in the room, that everyone has safety.
Yes, thank you.
The word community stands out to me just because it encompasses all of us here in this room and everybody in our community. We all belong to it and should be able to participate in it. Not very eloquent, sorry.
I thought it was very, thank you.
Word, it's not important, but one word that really sticks out to me is help. Because we need to help our community members. And last time, at the last one, kept on saying friends. They aren't, sorry to say, but this, it might offend people, but we're not friends. Because we're also community members too, is whether we're homeless or not, so.
Thank you.
The word that stands out to me is home, and that's because I feel like everyone deserves to have a place to call home.
The word that sticks out to me is need, because this is there's a need, people who are unhoused, and it's not just a want, it's critical.
I just noticed the word drug and we have an incredible, I don't want to say epidemic, but it's got to get taken care of. People need what they need, but the destruction that happens to everyone, could happen to you, could happen to me, needs to be more than addressed. It needs to be taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually a series of words I'm seeing that sort of flow together where it just says get housing need now. And they're all sort of the same size.
And I see years and basically versus other years, you guys, the resources are here. It's just a matter of working on the industry, make sure those resources are being well worked.
I see Hillsboro and Portland, and to me, they're two very different communities, and I would like to make sure that Hillsboro does not end up becoming like.
I think I see the word health. And when I think of health, it's like an umbrella. We're talking about mental, we're talking about physical, we're talking about emotional health. So in regards to the situation of individuals experiencing houselessness and/or homelessness, I think health should be prioritized.
I just kept noticing life and feel. It's important for us to feel for each other and life because this is all about people's life.
Thank you.
I kind of want to go back to that word drug one more time. I think that the word drug, the word homeless is so unfairly combined. There are so many people who are homed and wealthy and drug addicts, and that's okay. And then there are people who are homeless and may have an addiction problem, and it is so unfairly highlighted because it is uncomfortable for those of us who are forced to see it. And so I feel like, yes, drug is up there, but it is so unfairly targeted in the homeless population because it makes us feel very uncomfortable.
Right.
This is actually the opposite. One thing that I'm not seeing up there, and I don't think we've written it down yet, but is safe or safety. And we have to ensure our homes are safe in order to ensure that people can stay in their homes.
Hi, I'm EJ Payne from the Hillsboro Downtown Partnership.
You saw earlier, like 5 minutes before we started, I fell on this. We were talking about moving this out of the way.
It looked really good.
Yeah, no, I like, I smooth, I just fell like this. I meant to do that. But I envisioned that happening because we forgot to move it. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now I'm going to get into the data analysis portion of this. There's going to be lots of information here. Just frankly, this isn't perfect. I did most of the data analysis. I'm not a data expert, right? So it's very transparent about that. We had a very short period of time as well. All right. So yeah, so as I was doing this coding, myself, Mandy Goff, Megan Etop from our communications team, we looked at what are not just themes that we're seeing, but how can we take the information that's being written qualitatively and quantify it, right? Which is very hard to do with perceptions and ideas and things along those lines. And so this is kind of what we landed on. It was like 16 or 17 of them. Shelter, public property, property value, personal safety, drug use and or addiction, garbage/cleanup, myths, crime, mental health, police limitation causes, affordable housing, public transportation, pedestrian access, ordinance, and support. So, similar to what we just did before, I want folks just, again, contextually make sure we're on the same page. Raise your hand if you want to like say a word about, you know, what one of those things means to you. So that we can then talk about that, right? Make sure that we're on the same page about this. So, do we have anything you want to say?
I think the biggest one up there is support for me, because without the support of Open Door or Washington County, I wouldn't have my housing today. And a year ago, I was completely homeless, broken, lost. So support is the biggest one for me.
Thank you.
Not sure if this is really, when we think of homeless or housing, I should say, we often think of individuals. And I'd like to think more broadly, more of families, especially single parent with kids, because we all know the instability in housing for children deeply affects their education and what can we do? So there's always a partnership with the school district. I know McKinney does very good work, but I want to make sure we're all thinking broadly about it as opposed to just simply individuals, which is important also.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing to say during this time is if you're seeing something up there that's missing, right? Or something that you know is misconstrued a lot, right? And what that means, right?
Well, to build off what Linda was saying, I think that like community in general, because what I've seen is a lot of the people that have become housed this year are still coming back to hang out with their friends in the same area where they were homeless, because that's where they built community, made friends, made family.
I think the word that stands out most to me is myths, and I think to expand upon that, there is a sort of mythology around houselessness and who is homeless and houseless and what that means. And I think a lot of that needs to be dispelled in some way, and the humanity needs to be brought back to people who don't have regular housing. So I think myths kind of make people less successful in a way.
Thank you.
The one that stands out to me the most is mental health, because I think that is a huge situation that needs to be advised very importantly, because people with mental health are on the same, don't have the same mindset as somebody who can process things like the average person can. And I think that, like, in order for them to be able to have the same advantage, that people need to like look into that deeper and find ways for them to be able to have the same opportunity as everybody else.
So it sticks out to me, and primarily that's because that's what we're all tasked with ultimately, is to have a set of rules in place. And so, you know, it's a difficult task to take empathy and all the other human characteristics that are needed to create safety for people and put it into an ordinance, and also be mindful that a lot of our laws and regulations are in the systems that have been put into place to put humanity in certain situations today, but also being gracious with ourselves. The ordinances are meant to change over time, and so that it doesn't need to be 100% perfect today, and that we can revisit the ordinance over time as a community and with our council to make sure that it's evolving like people evolve.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a little bit, I think, little, I don't know, I'm gonna stop rambling myself. What sticks out to me here is garbage and cleanup. And why that sticks out to me is just the concept of how we deal with garbage. What it is it's a product that we've created for our convenience that we then collect up in a place and then ship off somewhere else to stack up, to not be dealt with, not have anything to do with it. And it hits me that I really want to make sure that we're not treating our homeless folks like that. We're not gathering them up and shipping them off. And we don't really focus on the businesses who have created this product in order to sell what they're selling and to make the money that creates the garbage too. So I just want to really think about how these folks are real human beings and how our system is creating a situation and dealing with that at the core.
Thank you.
What I see that's actually missing on there is expectations. So in a lot of the community mental health organizations, we do have some contracts with certain hotels, motels, where we have the opportunity to put people up in housing that's temporary. But the expectation is that they come from generations of homelessness. They don't know the expectations and they don't have the same skill set that people who have been housed their entire life have. And they make one mistake, one thing. They smoke in their room. They do one thing and they're out. The expectations can't continue to be the exact same for people who come from generations of having safe and secure housing, but they are. And I think that that's not up there.
Thank you.
Another word that I don't see up there is future. And, like, we still kind of stuck on things that we do today or have been done in the past that they are not working. We need to change that. And we got to think about what's next. And at this point, like something working in the industry for a couple of years now, letting the new ideas, letting the new generation support the decisions that they're going to be affected literally on their families, friends, and community are not being really, accepted. And I think that's where the support for, like the community needs to be at, because we are not thinking about future.
Thank you.
I think one word that I'm not seeing up there that might belong would be the word impact. And I want to make sure that I mentioned that I see that as being on all sides of the issue. Obviously, houselessness, homelessness, there are so many impacts to the individuals, the families, people who are going through that lived experience. We need support. We need, mental health. We need to change so many things to help those people who are dealing with that. And on the other side of this point, we also have an impact on all of the individuals, whether they're police officers, park maintenance employees, public works employees, business owners, people who are also having impacts by the situation itself. Just speaking for those that I'm here representing, in Parks and Recreation, I have about 80 employees who are out making sure that all of our parks are clean and safe and open and available to everybody. Everyone, doesn't matter who you are, our parks we welcome with open arms. The past few years, the impact on those individuals who signed up for this work because they love being outdoors, they love mowing, they love edging, they love pruning, they love all the things that they do. The impacts of them that I'm seeing real people every day, cleaning up feces, picking up biohazards, needles, being attacked, assaulted, chased with knives. Also, and again, I'm not suggesting that this is all people who are homeless. It is not. 100% it is not. But there are impacts that are going on that are affecting everybody. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, all sides.
I was just gonna use the negative connotation of impact and use consequences. Because there are going to be consequences to this ordinance, again, on both sides, not just to
friends that are sitting on the streets, but also to local businesses and such. And then I think the word that we're seeking that I don't see is safety.
Thank you.
So I think after hearing impact and consequences, what comes to mind is that idea of flexibility. It's also something that isn't on this list, but it's flexibility, it's compromise. It's recognition of everybody's humanity, and we're talking about a group of people who have been dehumanized, but we want to bring them back in. Like this ordinance, I see as sort of an opportunity to treat people with some dignity. I want to build that in, but we do need to recognize that everybody has to give a little too, in order for this to be a truly successful ordinance and something that helps people ultimately.
Thank you.
So on that same note, something that potentially could come out of this that hasn't been talked about, it's really not for this group, is funding. Is if the state is at an ordinance in place, then is there funding connected to it so that we can make sure that there isn't a negative impact or the consequences aren't too severe for all the parties?
Okay, thank you. All right. This was some thoughts. You're gonna notice today I'm passing the mic around a lot. And it really is because you all are the reason we're here. You all are the experts in the field, the experts in your communities, your situations, right? And so it's really important that you all are being heard and your words, your intentions are being felt in this space. That's what it's about. And so with that, we'll go ahead and take a bit of a break, like 5 minutes. Some water, need some water, and yeah, back with you in let's call it 10:50. Yeah. She just she's already had it. She has both of those. Yeah. Here's what he did. I'm pretty much an expert. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, please. Wow.
Then Tom, like, I just.
Very diverse audience. Which of these Chris's is you?
I was out of town, but one of my staff filled that up, so I sorry you didn't get it.
Okay.
Grace actually handed them out to businesses. So, but I know most of them probably got to it.
So-
I know you've already judged them, but yeah.
But thank you. Okay, while we are still on break, anybody that's got here late that has not checked in, signed a card, let me know. Okay, I don't know if they're gonna be. All right, folks. Let's work our way back. Work our way back. All right, thank you. Just full disclosure, I still haven't got an email back from the caterer.
Right. You have your the restaurant nearby.
So we'll play that by ear as it happens. Told them to be here at like 11:20, so I think they'll be here. Yeah, Cam and Cam caterer. Cam. They're the ones that didn't say the one last time as well. I believe so. They could be. They could be. I'm an optimist, I believe. They're just so good, they weren't expecting it. Yeah, we got this. All right. Next slide, please. So now we're gonna get into the data. And so to engage Hillsboro, the wonderful website that our communication teams have set up, and through our paper surveys that were distributed to some of our shelters and community organizations, we received a total of 894 responses to the survey, which is huge. Apparently, I'm new here. I've been 4 months at Hillsboro, and so I didn't realize that that was so many. Apparently, that like blew everything else out of the water. So, good job. There were so we had a survey, and then we had questions that we were able to like kind of answer live and answer, on the fly. And so of those, we had 14. 10 of those we answered publicly. You can go to the Engage webpage and see them, or then we answered privately. And the reason for that was that there were repeated questions from the same person, or things that were. And so that's what all the statements come. So the data analysis, we did a lot, and we did capture some demographics, and those demographics, listed here. But there were some that we captured that I don't have listed. We captured LGBTQ, and we captured hearing disabilities, sight disabilities, or like communication disabilities. If that's something that you want to go into, we can talk about it. I can show you that data. I don't have it captured on these slides, but I do have that. For the purposes of these slides, what we captured was racial identity, white and non-white. So as you can see, there's 386 white, white, and 140 people that identified as non-white. So that was all the other categories essentially. Now, obviously, you see there's the big discrepancy between 386 plus 140, it's 894, it does that up, right? But there was 430 people that did not put demographics, so that's where it was discrepancy. Age, so born 1980 or later, and then born prior to 1980. So that's kind of how that was split up. Gender identity, we had 114 people know that they're identifying as male. 243 female, it's 16 non-binary, and then, like I said before, 413 with no demographics. And when we captured this demographic information, it was all it's all optional. So it's all optional. And like the overwhelming percentage of folks who took the survey took it as which, you know, is just kind of an access, just make sure everybody feels comfortable to it. You can sign into your account, you don't have to. I think there was like 4, I don't know, 94 that were actually accounts. So that's all right. So a lot of numbers on this screen. I have these broken down right now into folks who indicated in the survey that they experienced housing insecurity on the left side of the screen, and folks who indicated that they had not experienced housing insecurity. And so what that looks like, experienced housing insecurity. The questions on the survey were, I'm actually really glad that you brought the survey in because now I can look at it. So it was either I have experienced homelessness or have experienced homelessness in the past. I have been close to losing my home, or I have needed social services to avoid foreclosure, pay rent, or pay utilities. So anybody that had checked one of those responses on the left. And on the right, were anybody that did not check those. Those other options were, I have never experienced homelessness. I am a homeless service provider. People experience homelessness, can't pay my work fees. Home, none of these apply. And this was a select all options that apply piece of the survey. So looking at this, and the end, so the number for all 7 responses on the experienced housing insecurity is 186. And then for folks that had not experienced housing insecurity, 708, all that is 804, if my math is correct. Just open it back. All right, so what I did is I went through and I highlighted in purple, just my favorite color, the top 3 coded responses for each of those demographics, experienced housing insecurity versus not experienced housing insecurity. And so on the experienced housing insecurity side, we see our top 3 are personal safety, support, and mental health. Now, I do have a couple of notes here from Mandy, because Mandy is resident expert on all this. So, note of personal safety. Persons with experience of homelessness tendencies. So she went and read through all of the comments that were in the survey, that qualitative data, and just the feel of it, right? Personal safety means something different for different people, right? If I look around this room, I probably have 25 different definitions of personal safety. So, there's no personal safety. Persons with experience of homelessness tend to describe concerns with personal safety in terms of imminent fear of assault, lack of safety affecting abilities and function, as in physical and mental exhaustion, and having to be on housed persons tend to describe personal safety concerns as leading to avoidance of particular public spaces or persons living outside the living congregation. So just putting that context out there. Looking on the right side here for the not experienced housing insecurity, we have again personal safety. Relevant why I read that note. Garbage, and that's that category of garbage / cleanup, and drug use, again, which is that category of drug use and or addiction. And so the note on garbage is within the garbage / cleanup category, 450 responses were about 61 reported the need for more bathrooms, and 44 reported concerns with sharps specifically. This breakdown shows the need for greater restrooms and sharp over access alongside concerns just about general litter / And then looking back on the experience housing insecurity side, mental health, the notes she had on mental health, persons with experience of housing instability tended to describe how that experience has negatively impacted their mental health. Housed persons tended to describe concerns around mental health with fear of those who may be in mental health crisis and or desire for there to be greater help available in this crisis. Yes. Yes, I would. Okay, any questions about kind of the coding? Definitions? Anything along those lines? Okay, I'll stop talking for a minute, and kind of give you a chance to just look at that, digest it, think about that.
The title or the title of garbage, and then when you recite it,
Hold on.
So the category of garbage, when I heard you talk about garbage, you also included the use of bathrooms. When, would that be able to be, we have to think about it as more of a public health? Because sanitation, public personal hygiene and all that stuff is part of public health, right? So when I saw that and we were talking about, it, I was like, oh, I didn't even think about the public bathroom situation, so.
Yeah, as I was going through and coding these, it was really hard to try to find one category that fit everything perfectly. And so the garbage / cleanup category, that included things like bathrooms.
So just to make sure that we're clear, individuals were asked to rank each of these things in terms of what was most important to them. What was the actual question?
Got it. So these were, so there was a question on here, which was, please describe the way homelessness has had an impact on you. Right? And so that is, wildly different in terms of language for everybody. And so we read all of them, and we tried to make all of that text fit into these categories, right? And so this was kind of our best attempt to kind of capture as most of it as we could. Obviously, it's not going to be, taking qualitative information, putting it into a quantitative manner, just it's. And so as we go through reading it, right, to Mandy's point, right, if I'm reading through these things and I see, I'm reading a response from somebody that has experienced housing insecurity, right? When they're talking about personal safety, they're talking about things like, for example, I'm scared for my life, I don't know where I'm going to sleep, things along those lines. Whereas somebody that hasn't experienced housing insecurity, when they're talking about personal safety, right, they were saying, I'm scared to go to the park at night, something like that, right? And so while those are very different contextual things, that is both coded under the personal safety. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What about food security? No one said anything about related housing security.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that fell under food security was in the support category. So if people were saying, we don't have enough access to food, we don't have XYZ, right? That under the support category. Things along the line, I'm trying to just kind of pull out some examples of things from memory. Property value, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Public property, that was anything from parks to, civic center, things that were brought up. Shelter, that was when someone specifically mentioned a shelter. Talk about drug use, was anything from mentioning needles to explicitly mentioning drugs or addiction. Garbage, we talked about myths, that one didn't come up often. That was something when we started when we thought was going to be much more prevalent, but it wasn't. And it is what it is. Crime, you can see the discrepancy there. Folks that have not experienced housing insecurity mention crime more often than folks that have experienced housing insecurity. Similarly with mental health, that's another huge disparity. 17% of folks that have experienced housing insecurity versus those who haven't. Yes. Hold on.
Sorry. Get your steps in today.
Oh, I love it.
Is it safe to assume that similar to personal safety, that the issue of crime means something very different to the individuals on both sides of this equation? Because I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, that for individuals who have not experienced housing insecurity, they're coming at this response assuming that people who are homeless are committing crimes either against them or their businesses or whatever, whereas maybe individuals who have experienced housing insecurity are coming at that thinking that crimes committed against them by other individuals because they don't have secure spaces for their belongings, or they don't have their own personal safety, so crimes are being committed against them.
That actually wasn't something that I saw. Like I didn't see a huge discrepancy in what crime means to different people. And so people about crime, people that are experiencing housing insecurity, right? Like they're worried about people stealing their stuff, right? And so similarly, people that are not experiencing housing insecurity are worried about people stealing their stuff, and it's like that all fit under crime, Another huge discrepancy, the one that stuck out the most to me was causes. And so as I was looking at this, I see folks that are experiencing housing insecurity or have experienced talk a lot about the cause, right? 30% of all the responses mentioned something about one of a cause of housing insecurity, and virtually no one from the hasn't experienced housing insecurity mentioned cause. That to me was insightful, I would say.
Can you elaborate on that, Marcus?
I can. But maybe I'd ask somebody else. There's other thoughts?
I was going to mention causes before when I saw the vocabulary words, because that's huge to me. And I'm gonna open up a can of worms. On this survey, oh, good, okay. I spoke to quite a few of my neighbors in the last two about if they received anything or if they saw anything. The majority, and I will say honestly, out of 10, 4 of them told me that they did see the survey. I think it was online, but they didn't complete it because it was too late to complete. And then a few other people, too busy, this and that, paying attention. I said, you better heads up, pay attention, because this is affecting everyone, not just you, everyone. So with causes, that's one thing they did talk about. What is the cause? Is that, it's not just somebody that decides I'm going to go out and just camp for the rest of my life. There are definitely causes, and I would love us to somehow talk about that, because if we can't fix the problem, it's going to take for a long time. The causes are quite a few, and everyone is different. From a family that's struggling, losing a job, single parents, whether they are male or female, mommy, daddy, both, children. And I'm going to open up another can here. How come the school district isn't here? Why aren't they or somebody representing? Because I'm a teacher, and I would, youngsters, if they were hungry, if they were disheveled, if they were tired, had problems. Not that I was trying to get into their lives, but definitely I got a few of my kiddos were house, and I wanted to take it home. Couldn't, it was illegal. But they were living out of their cars, going couch surfing, all kinds of things. I don't want to take up that much time, but causes are so imperative for us to discuss.
Yeah, and to your question about the school district, there's 40, a group of this could be a group of 40. I think about 25 or so here. It's a question. But it will be available to them.
And again, it's maybe a can of worms, but I would suggest that causes are at the forefront of people who have lost their house. They know exactly what happens and they can follow that thread. And for people who maybe haven't experienced the threat of housing insecurity, it's hard to imagine what could lead them to that. So I think it's the forefront of the mind, potentially.
Thank you. And then, just to answer your question, my thoughts on that are, as I'm thinking about why folks who have cirrhosis, would mention causes of having, because we're blind to it, and we get to turn that piece of information on. And it's the way things are, and that's unfortunate. But that's my thought process is that we're too busy with the symptoms to care about the causes.
I think I heard a lot of people say, oh, I'll take it, or, it was in everyone's mailbox. The link was through the city mailings. But I think that the process that you're going through now and the changes that have happened in community engagement and, talking about like the group of people you brought here and how we all reached out to our different circles is a story that hopefully people will see and remember that like this code changed with from the community and fill out those surveys. They do make a difference. So if we can help pass that on, you're only a couple months into your role, but I think that we just have to prove to the public that this input really does matter. And it's not just something that we're doing fun of it. We don't just do surveys for the fun of it.
Goodness.
No, Marcus, you was made a good point. That was my head was going to, because I'm not someone who experienced homelessness, but I am from the city of Atlanta, predominantly African-American city. I also identify as African-American. So seeing this kind of relates to me experiences, engaging around issues around like poverty and in the city of Atlanta around police brutality and stuff like that, where some people may not understand why do a lot more people of color in Atlanta are incarcerated? Why are they in poverty? And some people just don't care. And so that allows them to get in a space of just like them get influenced by the myths, not have the compassion. So it is a reality of like if people don't really have that lived experiences, they really might not really engage with it. Or maybe look at say the survey might be too busy, but they don't have that tie to it compared to people who are like, oh, I know someone who has been homeless, or for these issues, they're more willing to be engaged or have the empathy to support or in this issue.
Just to her point, because we know you're a change maker and you are new, this is important. This is important for the city of Hillsboro to dive into and figure out how to be that voice around changing that from zero. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right. Excuse me. Before we go on to the next slide, any other thoughts on this?
Thank you. I've been trying to formulate how to say this, and I don't know a great way to say it, but it's very clear that those that have experienced housing insecurity, their biggest concerns are what they're experiencing. And for not experienced folks, their biggest concern is what they're seeing. And so it's really hard to consider policies, we'll say, based on the experience of folks that haven't experienced it. The other thing around causes, that's very telling, but also we need to talk about prevention, because there is a lot of upstream that has led us to this point where people that have not experienced housing insecurity are now concerned. And the people that have not experienced it also need to understand that they have a hand in the prevention, that it's on everybody. It's not on the people that are experiencing the disproportionality. And so along with causes and along even with the ordinance, we need to make a commitment to prevention, because we're not going to be able to solve this without also equally investing in that.
Yes, thank you. It's you just a second, but I want to say something real quick. So I loved all of that. And taking it back to what Jim said, and when you called me a change maker, you were all, and so we intentionally brought you here so that you all can hear each other and can hear each other's realities and be able to communicate that back with your so that there is more visibility. Had a conversation recently. Let's say something real quick. Had a conversation recently with a woman from the indigenous community, and she said the current genocide of indigenous people is invisibility. And that was super important to me, and I think that applies here.
I just wanted to also point out, looking at property value and ordinance, the numbers between the two groups are very similar. And I think that, I mean, I don't know how people are defining it when they were answering the question, but it does signify a common awareness of impact. It does signify that there, at least a little bit, people are paying attention, that something is impacted here. There needs to be some kind of scaffolding to support the system. So there's also similarities in the data if we look for it as well. And I think there are some key points to not lose sight of.
Thank you.
Pull thread that I look at the property value. I look at it, those that have experienced insecurity is maybe property value is a cause to why they're experiencing insecurity versus people that are seeing it as an impact to their property value. I like the commonality, but I did see that a little bit different.
Mark, when if you're around, if you can hear me, during lunch, is it possible one of these mics? This one that I'm using as well. Any other thoughts? Cool. We just got it. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the next thing we did was kind of broke it down more by the graphics as we identified earlier. And so for each of these demographics, again, broken up by experienced housing insecurity and not experienced housing insecurity. So starting with the males that have experienced housing insecurities, the top 3 coding categories were actually the top 1 were limitations, and the next 3 were all tied. And so that's why there's a little bit. So limitations was number 1. And then personal safety, garbage collection, cleanup, and mental health were the next 3. For males who have not experienced housing insecurity, garbage cleanup is number 1, followed by personal safety, followed by crime. Going down to females that have experienced housing insecurity, support is number 1, personal safety number 2, mental health number 3. And then females that have not experienced housing insecurity, personal safety was number 1. Garbage and cleanup, number 2, drug use and or addiction as number 3. And then for folks that were non-binary, support, causes, and mental health were the top 3 for those that have experienced housing insecurity, and for those that have not experienced housing insecurity, personal safety was the top 1. The rest were kind of like there was no key response specifically for that. But the rest were all just like 1.
On the survey, no, it's gonna be super quick.
Nope, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. For our interpreters.
So when you were building up a survey, when it came down to gender, was it specifically non-binary or was that disclosed?
It was non-binary or genderqueer. I believe is how it was covered.
Thank you.
Any thoughts, insights, talking about gender? So the next, the top right category there, born 1980 or later. So somebody help me with that. How old are those people? 40-ish, 44, 43, 43 and older. Thank you. So those folks. 43. Math. Those 43 and younger that had experienced housing insecurity, support, mental health, and personal safety were the top categories, while those that had not experienced housing insecurity, personal safety, garbage cleanup, and drug use and addiction. And then those that are older than 43, that have experienced housing insecurity, personal safety, support, and mental health. We've seen that theme throughout for those who experience housing insecurity, and then for those that did not or have not, garbage, personal safety, and support. Thoughts? Cool. And then the last category here is white and non-white, right? Looking at racial identity. Obviously, you can break this down further at numerous categories for racial identity, but for ease of calculating difference and such, we broke into white and non-white. So white folks that had experienced housing insecurity, top 3 support, personal safety, and mental health. White folks that had not, garbage cleanup, personal safety, drug use, and addiction. And then non-white folks who experience housing insecurity, personal safety, drug use, and addiction, mental health, diversity, personal safety, garbage cleanup, drug use, and or addiction. So, lots of information that's out there, right? And all of this is to basically support you in what we're going to be doing in the next section, right? Is so you are aware of what the community that engagement survey are thinking about, right? What are those top things that people are thinking about? Now, you all represent different communities. You all may have pulse of those communities, but we wanted to give a larger picture of, Hillsboro and our neighbors as well. And so just kind of leave this up here for a little bit. Just similar. If there's any thoughts, please feel free. Got a mic here for you. All right.
So as Marcus has said, that it's a spicy topic. I think it's also important for us to acknowledge the purpose of why we're here. Because you can look at this list and say objectively, some things are preventative and some things are actionable. Some things like mental health, support can't necessarily be addressed through ordinance. And I mean, we're here to talk about camping ordinance on public land. And it's hard because the biggest thing that we should be talking about, I think everybody acknowledges, is prevention. And it's hard to address that through a actionable ordinance. But I guess a greater subject, or a greater question for Marcus as a city in community engagement is, as important as an ordinance is there going to be an opportunity to look at the other side of this and, kind of prevent it?
Yeah, and I think that, well, I'm not the expert on this, I really can't give a great answer. What I will say is, I think Chad and Megan touched on this in our presentation weeks ago, and the idea that This is not going to end homelessness. This ordinance is not. And there are lots of different things that we can do, lots of different tools, ideas, thought processes to do preventative work. And that's where this community comes into play. You know, that's where I would lean on you all. Speaking of which, I said that it was reminded me of something that Rachel had brought up last time, and maybe Rachel and we're vibing over and talking about it, but the business toolkit. Mandy has a bunch of them, and I put them on the back table. So please take them, put them out in your community. Businesses that, you know, business owners, friends, whatever. Get that information out there because right, we do have the possibility to be more preventative instead of reactive.
Apologies for being late, but I was listening. And the microphone is important because if you're listening on Zoom and somebody's not using the microphone, you have no idea what they said. So I am in the role of community engagement and communications for Clean Water Services, Water Utility District, you know, slightly different role. But one of the things I see here is, and I brought this up last time too, so I'm sorry, but I think there's a real need for communicating. This is really impactful, this data. And, you know, the first time, well, not first time, but you just see the judginess from those of us who have not experienced housing insecurity, and sort of the assumptions. And the people that are in the service role are very aware of this, the dichotomy between the belief systems and the reality. But I struggle with this internally in my organization. We have operational things that address houseless activity on our properties. And I really need for people to be compassionate and understand this disparity between reality and assumptions. And so I'm just wondering if there's like what the plan is to do with this and sharing it with you know, Hillsborians and beyond. I'm sure that's a word.
It's red. Keep thinking it's off. Yes, so I am very, very big with transparency. So I appreciate that question. I am going to put this everywhere that I can. So all this information, these slides with me on Engage Hillsboro, I'm going to share them with our partners, Beaverton, Clean Water Services, Washington County, Tiger, right? All this data, they can have it. Because the more that we are informed as a community, and the more that we share our collective knowledge and wisdom, the better we are. And so, yeah, I'm going to put this out as everywhere that I can. And I'm going to share it with our communications team, and they're going to do with it what they do, all those things that they do. Yeah. So.
I have two thoughts. One goes back to kind of what do we do to prevention? And I think it's just really important to highlight all the good work that is being done, particularly when the Metro Bond came through and supportive housing services is happening, and we're housing people, we're making life change. It is happening. And the ordinance happened. 14 ordinances are going to happen. And there is going to be an effect and impact on both sides. And we're going to continue to build shelter beds and increase shelter beds and build more affordable housing and get more people into housing. And, you know, at PHC, we're going to rebuild our access center. And there's really good things happening as well because of the Metro Bond and those funds. Something I'm not understanding, or I can't look over here, you guys, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, is top 4 under male for experiencing housing insecurity. Support didn't come up, but it was number 1 under female. Any thoughts? My brain is.
So one of the reasons that it comes up under females, I believe, and not under males is that for many females, they are experiencing, there's a couple of reasons, they have a lot of experience with domestic violence. And so housing them in situations where there are a lot of males, many of whom are sexual predators, who are registered sex offenders, who are domestic violence perpetrators themselves, is not an option for them. Additionally, females are more likely to have children, so they can't be housed in some of these housing areas where there are sexual offenders. And a lot of the housing places that we do have and rightfully so, we do need more housing for registered sex offenders. So it's not an option for them as well. So we have support needs in excess for women. On the flip side of that, we have an excessive need for domestic violence resource for men, because there aren't any for men. Most of them are female exclusive. So those are my thoughts.
I thought it's a little broader in terms of socialization of gender norms. And I think what I've heard you fairly repeatedly is that men don't know what to ask for in terms of support, or they don't want to. There's an expectation that they should be able to handle things. So there's a lot of guilt and shame around accessing support. It's just not normalized.
Your thoughts on that? You said a word that I think everyone should do.
Like what she was saying is, I know for me as a male, it's my ego. It hurts my ego, and it's harder for us to ask for help because we feel like we're a man. We should have that back. We should have that strong back and carry that burden on for ourselves.
Thank you. Full disclosure, I'm starting to get a little panicky about.
So I'm going to be for a second because I try to always do that. I just want to share something that for many, many years, I try really hard to be non-judgmental, to be open to people wherever they are, however they want to be, and to not make assumptions about any certain population or things like that. But something that I just heard kind of struck me, and that is you just made a comment that you work for a service provider, so you are very knowledgeable in this field, and you just made a statement that many of the men who are houseless are sexual predators. And I just need to share with you that for me, as someone who, again, tries to be very open-minded and be not as concerned as you might find other people to be. Like, I'm actually shaking right now because I'm like, wow, maybe because when I saw all the responses about personal safety on the non-experiencing housing insecurity, I thought to myself, oh, people are being judgmental. People are being, too hard, too critical, whatever. But then I just heard you say that, and I thought, holy crap! If that's true, and most houseless men are sexual predators, wow! I guess I do feel unsafe. I guess I'm worried about crime. I've got 4 kids at home. Holy shit! I don't want anything like that in my parks, near my schools. I mean, so I just need to be getting vulnerable. That just really set me back from where I came into this process.
And I certainly want to clarify something too, is that it's not that most homeless men are sexual predators. However, sexual sex offenders, registered sex offenders, are absolutely set up to fail in our society, right? You cannot live anywhere if you are a registered sex offender. So they are more likely to be houseless or homeless than people who are not registered sex offenders, because where can you live if you are a registered sex offender? Where are you able to live? You can't get a job. You can't rent an apartment. Can't do anything. And keep in mind that a registered sex offender can be very, very loosely identified. It can be very loosely identified. So it can be somebody who was, 19 years old and had a 16-year-old girlfriend. And daddy got upset and called the cops. So that 3-year time period, was met and he went to jail. So sexual predator, sex offender could be very loosely identified. It can be somebody with a developmental disorder that really didn't know better and had a judge that didn't care. And, they're now a sexual offender. And we have absolutely no resources for them, and they literally have no resources to live anywhere. However, a mother with children who is also houseless is not able to live in one of the new projects that we rightfully are able to say, we're going to house sexual offenders here because they need those resources. It is not okay to say because you are a sexual offender, you don't deserve basic needs. It's not okay to do that. But it does also make it harder for a single mom, to also live in that area. So I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Julie brought all of this up. So in a better world, would we have a separate housing? Because would we have separate housing for certain men or certain women? I mean, as it is right now, are you taking into account registered, whatever? I mean, and they're housed, it's a all in together situation right now. I have a couple of other questions. That's what I wanted to know. Is it everybody all in together, or are they absolutely separate for families? Or is it that we are up against the clock and we just have to put everybody together? Because the council, I'm sure, would be aware of that. I'm telling you right now, that would be a big block.
And you and you, and before, just let me quick comment before we get completely derailed by talking about individuals with sexual offenses, very small population.
Very, very, very small population. So I want to reiterate, I appreciate your vulnerability. I want to reiterate what she just said. Of those who are houseless that are registered sex offenders, or of registered sex offenders that have difficulty finding housing, the number is higher. It's not most of homeless men are sex offenders. We saw Jessica over 1,000 people last year at our day center. Less than 5% are going to be registered sex offenders. So I really want everybody to make sure that we don't leave with the fear that came through you. Because it's not what I heard, by the way. It's difficult to find housing for a registered sex offender, not impossible, we've done it. And also, it can be men, but we just want to, I don't want. Yeah. Just want to.
Being sort of factual statements and sort of provider, because again, I don't pretend to know anything about the situation.
Yeah.
So it really struck me.
I think it came over, you heard most and you took that, and that's just not that would be a myth. That's going to be the flip side. We can get our friends that are sex offenders into housing. It is possible. And to your point, sex offense, I could talk to these guys all day long about it. If I ever get to the point where I can get legislation, this is the one thing that I will take on. I had a staff member who, no judgment room, right? She was a pimp. She was kind of like a pimp. She has a sex offender charge against her. That's the guy. And not her, sorry. Her staff member, I'll say that. And there was no predator happening there. There was actually, she was not the one having sexual intercourse, and so it's a very broad definition, and we have to be very careful sometimes, because this is where our bias is. When we hear it, automatically go someplace.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I'm really glad that this happened naturally, because as you're talking, I appreciate the vulnerability, because this happened. And this is what our communities are talking about. And so it's our responsibility as people who are representing them to bring this information back.
Okay, so I'm gonna get emotional on this one. First I want to apologize to you, I know you're, okay?
And thank you for coming. So the population, and we see a lot of people and new people are coming to us every day. Population is very small and everybody makes mistakes and I know sex offenders are one of the hardest to forget, right? And but they are getting housed. We've housed almost 100 people last year, just on in Project Connect alone. And I have a gentleman that's on, so I'm the case manager, so I see new people every day, but on top of that, I'm also a Arla housing case manager. And I have an older gentleman that's on my caseload, and he was rough to house at first because he is a sex offender. But I can tell you, I've been working with this gentleman for about 3 years, not even before all these new housing options came out for us. And I've learned to love this man. And I don't, when I look at him, I don't see him as a sex offender. And he is probably the least scariest person I've ever known. Probably, there's a lot of factors in that, but he is a wonderful guy and I would vouch for him. But it is hard to forgive people, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't know.
I wanted to bring it back around to the code that we're talking about, because one of the things I heard from like downtown business owners was, you know, kind of like this safety, right? And the perception of safety. But I think also though, if you think about, I know in my neighborhood, we have a large blank slate where people can park an RV for a couple days, right? And like if there's a single man there, 8,000 neighbors are gonna call and say this RV has to move. But if there's a family there and they found out that this was a you know, living in their car, like that would be different. And I think that, you know, I think we just have to recognize that like there are this variety of people and they're all dealing with different struggles. And we're gonna have to, you know, we're trying to be advising for a code that fits everybody. But then how are there exceptions? How can those things be overlooked? And how do we make sure that this code is taking all that into consideration? Because we don't know, these that deal with them probably don't know their whole story and who's okay to say, well, it's okay if you stay a few more days, versus like, no, you have to today.
Thank you. And I think that's a great place to close this piece of conversation. Because yeah, like going back to Chad's presentation, all this has to be reasonable, right? And saying that you can't do X, Y, and Z, but also A through W. You can't do either, right? And how can anybody be expected to do, you know? And so I'm really glad these conversations are happening. Yeah, I'm just really excited for the next half of the session and in full panic now about lunch. So I'm gonna go ahead and break us. I'm going to call the caterer right now and see like what is going on because I have not seen them. And we have lunch, and if we don't, then we'll bring some down. We'll be back 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I was. Or. And shots and legs and cider. Yeah. So I guess my. I was just talking about. Right, yeah, no. You apply for the yeah. That's actually not even anything else like that. Yesterday, I went on
Marcus says lunch is kind of on our own, but they're gonna reimburse everybody $20.
Yeah. I know, yeah. It might be 5.5. Garden, like an after patio. Oh, I should have done that. I think it's that. I'm confused, but I'm just on. No, but I mean, the original, like, was that? I want to say like 120 or something. It's a little bit like some resources. Yeah, but maybe it's closer to, it's like there's a lot of resources. Yeah. Not into the case. Even we picked. Really bad. You don't even have like a connection. Memory. And really. You leave one and you go to get their parents. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're really. And get her qualified for Medicaid, I will not put that because I don't think I'm getting. No, and I'm. No, 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 no. I'm just fascinated in love with so, you know. Yeah.
We're gonna get started very shortly.
It's.
Got my water. Right, folks. Thank you all for bearing with us during the lunch shenanigans. Really big thank you to John Grover and our finance department and Simone Brooks, my boss, the community manager, for helping us get all that figured out. I really believe in good, equitable community engagement, and feeding people is part of that. And you know, I made a lot of government employees very uncomfortable, me included, but that is good, equitable community engagement. So I really appreciate you all being flexible with that. This next piece, the rest of the afternoon, we're going to be doing a lot of, we're going to be doing a consensus building workshop. And so that's a method that is designed through people in Canada that are much smarter than me. And it's a facilitation method that helps to come to consensus about difficult conversations, difficult topics. And so David is supporting me in this. He's been supporting us throughout the entire presentation, and really thank you very much, David, for running all of our tech. Maria was going to be here today helping us out, but could not be here because she's working on some other things as well. And so I didn't update the slides. Next slide, please. All right, so for the next couple of hours, we're going to be working collaboratively to come to consensus. I want to make sure everyone understands that doesn't mean that we're all going to be in agreement, right? We've already seen that, like, that's probably impossible, and that's okay. Agreement does not mean consensus. So I'm just asking that you all participate fully and intently so we get the most out of this workshop. And remember, each of you individually is here for a reason, right? And so please participate as yourself to your full extent. So the components of this workshop, we're going to set some context, and then we're going to do some individual individual brainstorming time. I've got these tables set up back here. Shortly, I'm going to be breaking you all out into those tables, into different groups. I have some semblance of the grouping here, but I know there's a few people that showed up that weren't here earlier, and so we'll divvy you up as needed. And then we're going to do some discussion at those tables. And then we're going to spend some time doing clustering and naming. That's the bulk of this work. And when we get there, we'll be back here in this U shape again. We'll be doing that work here. And then we'll be doing resolve and reflection. So we can look at what it is that we've created. And then basically say, do we like this? Next slide, please. So to set some context, I'm going to start, get this other mic ready, going around and asking this question. Thank you, David. Have you participated in ordinance and or policy planning before? Who was there and involved? Anybody can answer. Actually, you know what? We'll start here and we're just going to go around the room.
No, I have not.
All right.
Yes, I have. Transportation.
All right.
Community member, residential community member.
Okay.
You spoke for me. I have not before.
But yeah, this is pretty much part of our daily planning. And most recently, the policies around housing that our team's been involved with are the state's middle housing legislation, the implementation of that, and then also parts of the ordinance that we're working on relative to temporary uses and recreational vehicles. Our team worked on recently as well.
Yeah, just usually stakeholders in recent years, obviously concerted effort to for most.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and currently Tiger and.
Well, I apologize for all of government for pulling you in all the different directions to ask you the same question.
First, I'm seeing that tomorrow.
Managers.
No. Yes, it's actually a big part of my job. I think policies and parks and recreation, as well as various ordinances over the years, ranging from and our STC program, things like that. So it all depends on what we're talking about. Always Parks and Recreation Commission, comprised of citizen volunteers, is always part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, that Tualatin Hills Park and policy rule development.
I have not. Me either.
I have,
Yes, it's from the library.
I have,
What was the context then?
I'm a city councilor, giving a lot of grief to all the departments. The municipal code. We really took a lot of time with that, so that's gonna be an interesting change. So yes, I have.
Yeah, some internal department policy.
Fortunately, I have not.
I have in terms of organizations, this one and Beaverton is the first ordinance that I've been involved with.
nothing this broad. So when I was working Oxford houses, I was on a good neighborhood policy with city of Tualatin.
I have been on a number of ordinances and policy planning before with the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections and the Idaho Department of Corrections, usually specifically pertaining to sex offender treatment and around sex offender release and planning.
I've not been on the planning side of the ordinance.
Yes, I've been involved in policy, internal human services, and no to ordinances.
Okay, cool. Thank you all. Couple things I wanted to know. First, it's very interesting to see who had been involved, who had not. A lot of our community members that are part of an organization have not been a part of planning that before. And as someone that my role is community engagement, like we're missing the mark. The other thing is everybody that answered no longer be able to answer no because you're part of it now. So welcome to the club. All right. Next slide, please, David. All right, so the next question, where have you seen ordinance and or policy planning fail? And this one, I'm not going to go to every single person, but if you have something to say, like, raise your hand. Where have you seen it fail? Oh, here we go.
Seriously, I've seen it fail or have tremendous stall if enough input isn't taken into account. And that's from A to Z, bottom to top. So that's the thing I would say and encourage everyone, which I know you're doing here, is to make sure you cover bases. And there'll be openings, I know, but that's where fails when you don't have enough coming in and consideration.
Both at the beginning when the why isn't outlined about why you're changing, and then also, like you said, after it's been implemented, and then, or it's about to be implemented, and a group comes along and says, we weren't asked our input.
So from a perspective, ordinances establish the legal requirements for what, for how we enforce and administer things. And quite frequently, they either, they're not well thought out or well defined about how the language can be interpreted in other ways. And so it leaves the use of with some gray area because terms that were used are not well defined. You know, like for somebody to come in and do exactly opposite of what you were intending for in that particular language.
And the flip side of that is if you're over prescriptive and make it too complex, and then it's hard to understand it, people that become involved.
Thank you.
So I think it goes along the lines of lack of input, but communication, and that goes both ways. It's not after the policy or ordinance is in place, and you go out and seek out input. It's usually at the beginning stages, and where it's seen it build is not in the front end. I've seen two things: the failure to think through unintended consequences, and we don't know what we don't know, but doing your best to mitigate risks around that, and then failing to provide infrastructure or support for the implementation of it. Just saying it's now active and then figure it out.
Right, thank you. This was a two-part question, and no. Anybody have any way to succeed?
In fairness, you only said.
Yeah.
I read this.
Did I?
You only said, I read 6.
See, I set y'all up for failure. All right, so where have you seen ordinance and or policy planning succeed?
It's going to highlight what you've been doing, Marcus. The middle housing legislation we did, it was the first time I would say our division did intentional community engagement. And so we didn't have nearly as much as you got through this process, but it was much more well received, and it's actually in the implementation, we've seen a lot more capture rate on more middle housing being built because of your engagement through it.
It's wild when you listen, like people have a lot to say, right? It's wild.
One thing I will say is and it can go either way to make it successful or to fail, but keeping in mind what it will take to enforce the policy or the ordinance and what the impact might be on police department and others to be able to do it or not. And those expectations can, like, so for example, a number of years ago, we implemented no tobacco use in the parks, for example, which was a new thing. And there were some concerns about enforcement because we don't want our police officers to be called every hour because someone's smoking in the park, right? They have more important things to deal with. But going into it, knowing that that wasn't the point wasn't to have something where people are calling 911 because someone's smoking. It's more like it empowers our patrons to ask someone else to please stop or please go somewhere else and do it. And so just thinking about what the impacts are for enforcement.
Maybe this is controversial, but if you don't hear complaints about it after it's implemented, then there's probably a lot of things that have succeeded if we think about it that way. I don't know, Tina hears complaints about everything.
No, it's just bring up a really good point in that good community engagement involves checking back in and saying like, okay, we did this.
I just thought of a couple more things. One more law. How strong would it be if you could countermand a lawsuit? And that's a possibility. Just didn't want it, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Got all that, David? Next slide. Really, really very much appreciate that. This is not a one person job by any means, and it's something out a huge set by taking you now to getting your thoughts on the screen. So what may have caused those successes? I've already heard some of those answers here, but let's intently answer it now. So what may have caused those successes and failures?
Failures would be rushing or not taking enough time.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think from my perspective, one of the reasons things fail, quote unquote, is they are not clearly identified, like who is supposed to do what, like whose role, whose responsibilities, or you're putting responsibility on people who didn't consent to be part of it, like, you know, like just piling things on mental health, like using it as a blanket term for all, like this catch-all of things we don't know what to do with. So there's like no specific who, why, when explanation about why we're even.
Thank you.
And I think going back a little bit, to what you were saying as both a success and potentially a failure, you can have all the input that you want into something, but if it's not from all of the interested parties, then it's going to lead to a failure. So if all of your input is from 400,000 homeowners, that's not very representative. So you need to have a collective representative sample.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say that I think often how it historically has happened is we get these small focus groups and it hasn't been a truly representative sample of our entire community. So where I've seen the failures is we've asked questions, we haven't asked enough questions of all the people. And it's typically a small percentage of the population, or it's historically been a small percentage of the population that has the time and energy and resources to actually participate. Why we have marks.
Absolutely, that is 100% right, and that's why on that survey, probably one of the only questions I made required was, what has been your experience with housing insecurity? Because that is the most impacted population. So let's have that demographic detailed out clearly in the data. The other thoughts? Nope.
I was just gonna add to that. I mean, it was, in a sense, it was already said, but I was just going to say, like, when things are decided and then start to move really quickly, I think sometimes there's a lack of communication, and that lack of defined roles and things like that, I think can definitely lead to failure.
Yeah, I'm really big on slowing down, taking our time, pausing. You know, a lot of what have caused the failures. We have anybody that wants to talk about what has caused some successes?
Opposite of what since failures. I would say the lack of planning for an appropriate amount of resource. When I say resource, that can be monies, that can be people, without the appropriate amount and really thoughtful planning. That could be failure or a success, could go either way.
Are we on success? Exactly what's happening now when you have careful, really top-notch government employees and staff that are doing the right job. That's number one in my mind. When you have careful selection, when you have ethical and honest input. I'm being careful now because I know in the old days how they were succeed. They didn't have input. They just did it. And nobody said anything. And honestly, that's how I got involved with politics. So I just want to say ethical and honest input, careful selection of your staff, and just the correct way of doing business.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add a caveat. So you said government staff, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Well, yes, government staff is involved. We couldn't have been doing this without the help of our community. Connect and Central Cultural that are really integral in the planning of this. Okay, maybe one more.
All right, so when we were doing that, the neighbor policy with Tualatin neighborhood, it became a success. I think part of that was, or most of it was recognizing my own biases on the panel I was setting and being open to other people's opinions. And bringing up my implicit biases. Can I see that?
Thank you. That's a huge, huge, huge deal. Appreciate you saying that. That wasn't said earlier today, so thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so that brings us to the actual workshop question we're trying to answer here today. But a lot of time coming up with this question between myself, our camping ordinance planning work group, or some members of it. So the question is, what updates to this draft ordinance could improve it with special considerations for time, place, and manner? And because I am not Mandy. Mandy is so much smarter than me when it comes to all of this. I take notes on what Mandy told me time, place, and manner is. Okay. As a brief reminder, time indicates the when, like sunset to sunrise. Place indicates the where, like locations to allow or restrict camping. And manner indicates the how, like rules around cooking stoves, blocking sidewalks, etc. Okay, so that's what you mean when we say time, place, and manner. Chad talked about that last time. Cool. So that's the question that we're working on today. So I do want to take some time to do clarification, confirmation of this question. So I said, who developed the question? What resonates with folks about that question? And or what are some other ways to ask them? I really want to make sure that we have a deep understanding of the question before we get into our breakout sessions. So take a second, zero. Any thoughts?
I learned something new with TARP. More of a joke, but I'm assuming the word TARP is short for tarpaulin. I never knew. So tarpaulin? Tarpaulin. Never knew that.
Or you know. Okay. Thank you.
So another way to phrase this could be kind of what we're talking about is just how can we make updates that are easily interpreted and take everything into as much as possible into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it kind of like, are there any things in the draft that you think might be problematic?
Yeah. And one more.
And I didn't know when the appropriate time for this would be. I noticed this last week. It had to do, I guess, with all three, time, place, and manner. It was like,
You're about to give yeah, we're not doing that yet.
Oh.
That we're gonna do in the small group.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That's what.
Okay. So for anybody, what adjustments, if any, would reflect what we need to explore today in regards to that question? Basically, I'm asking, do we think that this is a good question to be looking at for this?
I don't know. I guess the word improve is subjective. I don't know what you could do to adjust that, but.
Yeah, good point. And you know, when I was kind of drafting this question, I was thinking about like more perfect, right? In order to form a more perfect union, right? Like, but I didn't want to like use that language, but that's what I'm thinking of, right? Because everything can always get, and so like, I think that's the spirit of the improvement. Yeah. Strengthen? Strengthen? All right, David, can you edit that to be to say strengthen? So what updates the draft ordinance to strengthen with special considerations to find personnel?
This feels really nitpicky, but strengthening it makes it sound like more. Yeah, so it, you know what I mean, like tougher. Which I don't think is necessarily what we need. So it's really more like what would make it more effective or noticeable.
Is there anyone who doesn't feel clear on what we're trying to achieve through this? Because as opposed to spending so much time,
Yeah.
just we're missing part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah,
Slow it down.
yeah.
That's flagged last time I checked with Chad about the exact wording and vocabulary, because, you know, a good attorney could turn this around and strengthen, you're right, it's like more enforceable, but that's what an ordinance is. You're gonna enforce it. And you don't want to have a gray area.
So we've got things on the table here. Strengthen, improve, make it more effective.
Support it. The word support.
Support. The basic that word is to support it. I think that fits the building. Thoughts? No wrong answer here, folks.
The only reason I'm putting this input in is I know how to tear it apart. So I'm just saying, strengthen does sound, you know, a little more, but that, you're gonna want an ordinance. You don't want this young man who's in the police department to say, I don't really know what to do. And if they don't have something to follow, the city knows this too, it's moot. That's all. I'm not trying to be a strong arm here, but you've got to watch your wording.
What if? What if, like strengthen or improve?
So off of that, could it be more like, I don't know, we're like provide more clarity? So like more ordinances, we're trying to more clarity, insight, openness to how to handle things. What we're trying to do, the update is basically give a guideline or a structure of how to handle these situations properly, enforce it and be effective. To more of like provide more clarity and so we can have a. That's basically it. But just we're trying to be more open and more understanding the situation, so more clarity could be it.
So what updates this draft ordinance to provide the most clarity, especially considerations?
Really glad we're having this conversation because it does help to kind of get a sense of what exactly is on the table here, right? Because there might be some external considerations and, you know, I didn't say this earlier, but one of the challenges that you run into sometimes with ordinances is if they're made in a vacuum, right? Like not considering what other impacts around you and knowing that every jurisdiction in the area is so writing. And are there other considerations or shift to the actual time, place and manner components that might need to be kind of changed, not to make them more clear or more enforceable, but just to make them more livable, I guess. Is that on the table?
Everything's on the table. Okay, so a few things on the table. One with that.
I think I like clarify because it brings to our attention that this isn't just so that this is guiding law enforcement, it's so that everybody in the community understands what is expected of them.
Okay. So do we think if we change that wording to clarify? So what updates to this draft ordinance could clarify it, discuss considerations, blah, blah, blah. That is still gets the spirit of what we're asking here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. All right.
Strengthen needs to be changed to clarify, not ordinance. Like person having one person over here.
That was Mark last 2 weeks ago when the interpretation for the video wasn't being played, the sound. All right, so the last question here is, and this is more of just a subjective question. What impact would it make on you personally if we answered this question? What impact on this group? And what impact on our community? And we'll just take a few pauses to this. Anybody want to take a first go at this? Let's go with someone that we haven't yet. Any brave souls out there? I've heard from. I can, hey, there we go.
So being part of the crisis intervention team, it's me and one other person, and we're going to be basically the ones that are going to be doing the education and enforcement. So we obviously can't work 24 hours a day. So there just needs to be the understanding that with the staffing that we have with the police department, it's not realistic to think that every person is going to abide by these rules. And there needs to be the understanding that there isn't going to be 24-hour enforcement of it.
So. What impact? Well, it's interesting because you put the word if in, what impact would it make on like me personally if we answer this question? Well, we are going to answer this question. 13 cities in one county are going to answer this question. So the impact for me is going to be the word he just used, education, making sure that my staff fully understand what's being asked of our homeless friends and awareness friends of what the ordinance means to them, and then continued partnership with CIT and the police department on what enforcement might look like and how we could do it differently. And for the community, I hope that the community can recognize the thoughtfulness that went into this, and that, you know, this comes out of a space of wanting to clarify things for everybody. And if you can do it well, I did use if intentionally, then it, you know, maybe we'll have a positive impact from this. I'm scared.
Thank you. With most things, it's scary if you pay attention. That's just with everything. Okay, maybe one more on that question. I'm going to close.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Kim's comment about education for her staff. Well, I'm thinking about education for the community, the myths that we talked about earlier, trying to dispel some of that and get people to better understand that we're all in this together.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please. All right, so in answering this question, the root sentence that we'd be looking at would be something like this. The perfect camping ordinance for the city of Hillsboro would include ... right? And these are just some things that I'm gonna. Alternatives to by police, daytime storage programs, requirement of shelter option, right? So these don't have to be anything that you think is good. Anything you think is bad, just examples. So a few things that I want to talk about in the structure of this. So when we break out into our individual brainstorm, there's going to be some rules for how your ideas are structured. Want them all to be 3 to 7 words. All those are 3 to 7 words. Like, we're not looking for you to be draft writer. We're not looking for a novel. We're also not looking for one word, you know, nothings. So 3 to 7 words. Any questions about that piece? There's a method to this. All right, next slide. Okay, so we're gonna do now. We're gonna break out these groups. For everybody listening at home, This is about to get really boring for you. Because this is not set up for. So, our interpreters, thank you very much. For the next probably. So, gonna need to. Okay. So, for this part, we're gonna have 5 minutes, we break out and, the workshop question, which is up there, if you update to say clarify, set and improve. We're gonna break you out into these groups. There's pins at the tables, there are big sheets, whatever. There's a bunch of different things right on there. There's at least one copy of the draft ordinance there if you want to look at it. But I want you to write down 10 answers to that workshop question. That's a tall task. Acknowledging that. Tall task. However, really good ideas come when you push past the obvious, right? Those first really different file, right? Those next two that are really gonna get your brain working, okay? We're gonna limit our answers to 3 to 7 words per answer. Then I want you to start by your favorites one. The 3 favorite. Okay? There are slides on the table for you to work on. I'm going to split folks into groups. Matt, EJ, and Tina. You are all at whatever. Okay. You are all at whatever table Tina chooses. And bring a chair, because there aren't chairs on. All right, Linda, Jessica, and yeah, you're all at whatever table Cynthia chooses. Tina, Rebecca, Johnson, Ryan, and Barry, you're all at whatever table Tina chooses. Rachel Schultz. Okay. Berzon and Chris Chandler, you're all at whatever table Steve chooses. Shannon, Kim, Chris B, Steve, you're all at whatever table Steve chooses. That's you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Danny, Ken, D, we're all at whatever table chooses. Grace, Jimmy, and Jeff, you are all at whatever table Jeff chooses. And then I'm gonna put you two. Go, you're with CAO, right? I want to go at that table with Jessica, Cynthia, and Linda. I want to all right. So just a reminder to everybody, you have about 5 minutes. Sure, all the little small conversations have happened now. Take some individual time. You and your paper. And think of 10 answers to this question. And we're gonna go ahead and start that clock. 3 to 7 words per answer. Go ahead.
No, they don't.
So the 10 answers. The storage. Good. Thank you. Be very clear with everybody. This is individual. So you're working on your own paper, writing your own stuff right now, these 10. And we'll do group work afterwards. All right. So hopefully that's some good thinking going on there. And now we're gonna move into our group discussion. We're gonna move into our group discussion. So for the next 15 or so minutes, I want you all to talk as a group. Thinking about this sentence route that we talked about before, the perfect camping ordinance for the city of Hillsboro would include ... right? Each person share your 3 favorite ideas within the group. Work collaboratively in each of these groups to find your 5 most impactful ideas. You do not have to agree on this, very important. Somebody's really passionate about something, let it be in there. Okay, we're getting 5. That is more than one idea per person. 1 point plus. So each group needs timekeeper, just want to pay attention to time. Gonna have 15 minutes. Each group's gonna need a scribe, someone to write as folks are talking the top 5 ideas. You can write more than 5. You can write 23, fine. But have your top 5. And then someone to report back out to the larger group. So identify those. And then I will give you all 15 minutes starting right meow.
So, yeah.
schedule. I mean, glad everyone. Yeah.
All right, folks, about 6 minutes, 30 seconds left. Start getting those ideas on paper. Couple minutes left, folks, couple minutes.
Yeah.
All right, I hope every group has something written. We're coming close to time. Should have at least five things per group. All right. That is time. Sorry, folks, I know good conversations are happening right now, but we are in a little bit of a time crunch because of the lunch shenanigans. We were supposed to do lunch at 11:30. We lost about 30 minutes. We adjust on the fly. So let's take a couple minute break. Let's call it 3-minute break. Run to the restroom, get some water, whatever. But we'll be back in here at 2:08 and we'll move on with the next portion of this. And we'll be back in our youth. So back in your youth. I'm suspiciously not seeing people taking a break, which makes me think you're going to be late to return from break. So I would say, take your break, take your break. Right, all you overachievers still working in your groups. Wrap up the group work or on break. We're all coming back over to the screen. Come on back over here. Bring your chairs. Whoever's the reporter, bring your papers. Come on back. The most ignored role is standing here telling folks to come back from break when they haven't even taken a break. Come on back over. Come on back over. Bring your chairs, bring your chairs. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I see you table 2 is what I'm gonna call y'all. Yeah, you, I'm looking at you. Let's go. Whoever's the reporter, you take it. Yeah. Yep. All right, folks, let's come on back. Let's come on back. David, is the next slide, I think it's just clustering and naming, right? Yeah. Come on back, come on back. Got my Johnny Cash voice today. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. See, like clockwork, I say 2 or 3 minutes and it's 5 minutes. That's how it works. That's how it works every time. All right, so I know you are all probably feeling like that was not enough time. It wasn't. If I would have given you an hour, it would have been enough time. I would have given you 6 hours. Would have been enough time. People have been working at this for generations and it hasn't been enough time because we're still committed, right? So this next piece is going to be the meat of the workshop. So David, if you want to switch over to the mural, we're going to be utilizing this platform called Mural, where we are going to be putting our ideas together. We're going to cluster them. So this is a learning experience. I've never done this in Mural. I've never partnered with David on this. And so we're just going to be figuring it out, you know, just one step at a time. All right. So raise your hand if you were identified as the reporter for your group. All right. You should have a list of the things that your group came up with in front of you. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and start with here. Oh, the other mic. And I want you to read through what your group came up with. These should all be 3 to 7 words. I see a lot of words on that page. 3 to 7 words. All right. So, okay, you're gonna have to read through these, and David is going to be taking these down as you're reading through them.
Okay, hold on. We might have to condense it, yeah.
Should we start with another group?
We can make it work. Let's go. We have one for it's like 6.1204, section A, subsection 3. Let's say, yeah, let's hit define nuisance.
So, say that again.
Defining nuisance.
Define uses.
Nuisance.
Nuisance.
Yeah, what is a nuisance?
Okay.
For RV trailers.
Okay, so define nuisance.
Yeah.
All right. 2 words, but all right. All right. Next one.
Define unreasonable risk.
Define unreasonable risk.
Yeah, public safety.
Okay.
Let's see. Define any public right of way. And then
Hold on. Looking at David. Okay.
And then it's a 2 words, but define trailers.
Define trails. Trailers.
Yes.
Okay.
And then let me see this one. Does 10 person per property limit conflict with, yeah, kind of shorten this stuff more, way more than 7. What's that? Does 10 person per property limit conflict with what may be allowed for residential? Say again.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the spirit of the question about property limit and dwelling and.
Yeah.
Yeah, aligning the limit for camping.
Okay, get that.
Property, what was that?
Aligning. Say it again.
Aligning limits for camping.
Yeah.
With legal limit for dwelling.
Which could be the.
Property dwelling.
then we would be creating a new code that would address.
So do campers get the same rights as folks?
Or did we just create an unintentional limit on something else?
Does property and dwelling limit, what David put there, does that capture what you're thinking of? Were you the one that raised that one? Or- Okay, does that cover that?
I think so.
Okay, cool. All right, next group.
Number one, include direction about proper waste removal. Number two, include environmental protections. I split our second one into two so that we were under 7 words. So include environmental protections. Number three would be. That's environmental in terms of flora and fauna, trees and. Mindful of alternatives for heating and cooking. We've got 2 more. I'm gonna go to one of them we had was about the clarity of numbers. I think that's already been covered. So
Oh, no, use it.
oh, use it. Okay. Clarity about numbers that are manageable. Similar to the point of the differences between the cars versus the individual residential properties.
Okay.
Cam, I think I'm going to use the alignment with other jurisdictions would be a big one at the end.
Alignment with other jurisdictions. And who was our next reporter?
I think we win the prize for the shortest. Yeah. Okay, so we have plan for garbage sanitation. Here, yes.
Whoa.
Those were for-
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be perfect data, it's okay. All right.
Clear, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Plan for access service. As far as, if it's okay with my group, I'd also like to add update the point in time numbers.
All right, who is another scribe? Got 3, page number 4. You have 7 total.
I kind of just wrote down things as we were talking, so I don't know if my group would identify this as a collaborative exercise. But I think we're, in terms of time, flexible based on zone. Consider options for people with mobility concerns. A non-discrimination statement.
Hold on.
Sorry. A non-discrimination statement. And place designated by camping type.
And that first one at the top there, that was specific to time, correct?
Mhm.
Can you add that, David? For that first one, flexible based on zone, just for the time.
Like the hours of camping.
Yeah.
Time.
Any more from that group? Anyone else from that group? You with that group?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we got to the place at the beginning with the collaboration.
That's okay, it's okay, that's how we do this.
So one, I guess, is really a question, and that is that how will this interface with HOA, CCNRs?
Okay, so interface with HOA and what?
Codes, covenants, restrictions, CCNRs, like in an HOA neighborhood, when you move in, you agree to certain rules about, and it includes things like parking RVs and includes things like camping stuff. And then these.
private. Not like. So.
Meaning that the CPR. And and then the second thing was,
Same group. And it's okay if it leads to a different color. Colors are super important.
we can just call it background checks for residential camping.
Okay.
And I thought of that just because if you're in a neighborhood and I heard earlier, I think that there are, for some shelters, there are background check processes or restrictions or something. If you have a violent past, you aren't allowed to stay there. Is that what I heard earlier? No? I thought I heard that it was hard to get people into housing if they were.
All right, next group was 5. All right.
You say about background check.
So the thought was, the thought was because in here, it would allow individual homeowners in residential areas to open up their backyard to up to 3 tenants. And so my thought was, how do we mitigate some potential neighbor conflicts? One thought was be assured that the people who were sleeping in the backyard next to you were not violent criminals that might go along.
We're just idea gathering right now, so everything's going up on the board.
So we just kind of did a different point of view, took a different take on this assignment. So one of the things that came up for us was it's off the first page. When people identified as experiencing homelessness, when I go to REI or I go to big stores, buy camping, I don't buy camp paraphernalia. So can we just call it equipment? Changing the word from camp paraphernalia to camp equipment would be more respectful.
It sounded.
Okay, excellent.
So identifying the stakeholders. So we talked a lot about the residents, the business community, community-based organizations, property owners, but no one actually said the houseless community. So that should be included as part of the stakeholders.
Is okay. Do you have a 37-word statement in there?
That's a lot of words. Oh, these are my edits. These are just, I'm coming on the 1.2 3 thing.
Yeah, no.
Don't
Okay.
fill it? Okay. I have thoughts. Okay, number one.
This the group works.
What do we didn't go to follow the assignment correct? So number 1, ready? Address the concerns and fears of all stakeholders. Okay. With that, that's why we identified all the stakeholders. Number 2, identify the community partners and or organizations advocate, meaning work with the stakeholders. They should be included in, who's going to be a part of it, who has a voice. And then finally, education and communication that includes inclusive language or common language. So everybody has
Education with inclusive
and in
common language.
using common language in the ordinance.
Okay. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Jeff, more graphs. All right. Yep. Start.
All right, first of all, define the time of day, and apparently Beaverton, for example, did 8 to 8 rather than sunset to sunrise, since that varies a lot. And that also allows people to go to the library when it opens at 8 a.m., for example.
Pause.
What's that?
What was the 3 to 7 minutes in there?
Define time of day.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Related to that, and you don't need to type this, but it was just a conversation we had was if we're creating a sanctioned campsite program, why are we asking people to leave at a certain time of day? Because they would be able to stay in that person's yard for ever. That's what the owner agrees to.
Private property versus public property.
Right. So good. Clarify public versus private property.
Okay, there you go. That's what I'm looking for.
Daytime storage options.
Okay.
Sharps disposal opportunities.
So hold on, daytime storage options. And then
Sharps disposal requirements at these camps as well. And then who verifies camps are safe?
Sharps disposal requirements. And then who verifies camps are safe? All right, who was the last group? All right, let's see. Jeff, are you gonna follow the rules?
I don't know. So number one was permitted locations of public right of way. Exactly 7 words.
Nice. Appreciate you.
Next one, include supervision at sanctioned campsites. Number 3, prohibit camping on public safety property.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that public safety?
Yeah, I think it's better defined as I go to the next one. I think there's something better for that, but. You ready? All right. Limit camping proximity within business hours. So if you have a business that's, open past that time. And lastly, a plan for restroom types and locations. Did I follow the rules?
You did. We'll give that one.
No, we. Give him a 3.
All right. Thank you all. Okay, now we get to the tricky part. So first, anybody looking at any of these that you particularly advocated for that isn't spelled out or written how you want it to be written?
Yeah. And give us all an opportunity.
Yeah. Is there anything on here that somebody personally advocated for that is written in a way that doesn't get to the point you were trying to make? Right, so I was saying, right, update point in time numbers, right? And I was really talking about the point in place numbers, right? But whatever, but if it's being expressed incorrectly, I just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to, if there's anything that was incorrectly represented. What was? Cool, all right, David, can you take the top row, each of those top things and put them into 2 sorted area? All right, so we're gonna be going through all of these, including those 2 pink ones. Including those 2 pink ones. Perfect. You want that mouse now? All right. Those are good. Those are going to still be moved some more because that could be sort of areas over to the left. But I'm going to read through these. Define nuisance. Include direction for proper waste. Planning for sanitation. Background checks for residential camping. Define the time of day. Identify all who are advocates. And then permitted locations of public right of way. Okay. Does anybody see 2 of those that go together?
Yeah, the waste.
The waste. Sanitation?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put those 2 together. Perfect. All right. Any others that go together? Sorry, the text is a little small, recognize that. That one on the right is permitted locations of public right of way. Identify all that advocate as in stakeholders, define the time of day, background checks for residential camping, and then define nuisance. Okay, put the two definition ones together, David. Okay. Any other ones? Just with that top. Maybe not. Define the time of day. Talk about.
Identify the advocates, because saying that the ordinance would impact not only, even though it's written by the city,
Exactly, to provide clarity, because even though the ordinance is written by the city, making, this is also impacting who's gonna actually do the boots on the ground. So those are community partners, right? So, the city will work in conjunction with CBOs, community-based organizations, stuff like that. So even though it's not a rule for them, identifying, and it's in there, they did identify some of the people that they would be working with in the ordinance. So when we say identify all that advocate, we're talking about identifying clear, not by name, but it's the CBOs and the nonprofits.
Like the background information.
Right, so like stakeholders and definitions and things like that are all that background information that, or clarification or vocabulary, whatever that we need that aren't actually like written in the code, but that we need to have that information kind of all go together. They're not actually the code.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So yeah, so what I'm hearing from that is that Ms. advocating for putting the identify all the advocate into the define time of day and the define nuisance group, because she's looking at that as we're looking at kind of the language in the. How are folks feeling about that? Folks in agreement? Or are you like, really rolling? It's okay. Okay, cool. All right, this is all be changed. David, can you go back down to the bottom and grab the next topic? Oh my goodness. Open over here? The spelling is not super important. All right, let's grab more and start thinking about maybe doing the same thing as there's things that go together. All right, start thinking about that now. Just see the people that will read through all of them. All right. So looking at those, we've got define unreasonable risk, clarify public versus private property, includes supervision at sanctioned campsites, and includes environmental protections. In regards to time, flexible based on zone, and then clear yes zones. So folks see some of those that go together. Another definition added to that. Okay. Go ahead. The zone ones, clear yes zones, time flexible based zones, in a new column. Thank you.
I would say that they clarify public versus private, probably definition.
Okay. And that green time flexible based on zone, those are the clear yes zones.
I would say the permitted locations of public right of ways, probably the exact.
Okay, with the zones. Okay, moving that one over to zones. Include environmental protection. That fit in any of those?
Yeah.
Okay,
It almost seems like you might have like a requirements column, which then you can put background checks and requirements column.
we're a step ahead. We're already
Oh, sorry.
just doing this. All right, what's that last one? Include supervision at sanctioned campsites. That fit in any of those groups? Doesn't have to. Does it? Include supervision at sanctioned campsites. David, you want to grab? Maybe not. Yeah. And you can just like, I don't know if you can drag that a bunch, you can just grab 8. I don't know if that's possible. No, I don't think it is. All right, that included sanction, that one stays in the to be sorted column. All right, so we've got define any public right of way. Mindful for heating and cooking alternatives. Identify all stakeholders. Consider options for mobility concerns. Plan for access to service. Daytime storage options. And education and communication, inclusive and common language. So any of those that either go together or go in one of those columns that already exists. And about stakeholders. Right into the define column, okay? What else? Define public right away.
And plan for access to services and mobility options go together, but it's category.
Okay, move those over to a new column. Cool.
And then the one that we left behind last.
Yeah.
Right. Mindful of eating cooking alternatives. Know what that was, the environmental regulations, and such. That
I would
third,
say that would be a safety category.
okay, that's okay, if it doesn't match anything. Daytime storage option, what about that one? Services. That one, okay. Education and communication, inclusive and common language. Clarify or define. Okay. So let's just bring the rest of them out.
We should look at it down there.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, any of those activities?
Include all the community goes with stakeholders.
Okay, are you saying stakeholders should have its own?
No, it's in that definition.
Okay, so that include houses community, putting that in the first world.
It's a pink
The big
one.
one. Perfect, all right. Property and dwelling limits, we feel about that one. Same one?
That should be the zoning.
Okay, Second, again, that's just. Okay. Clarity of manageable numbers. Zoning. Second one. Okay. Alignment with other jurisdictions. Zoning,
That would make this standalone, it's
right, move that to its own spot. Okay. All right, update point in time numbers.
I'd say the zone.
Okay, zone, alignment with other jurisdictions, are those the same thing?
I think it goes, it's just,
And the one on the right, is that what you're saying?
yeah,
What do the folks think?
or the background information, the definition, I think it's just having updated reports and stuff, the first one with all of them. To the right. Your left or right on the square, there you go. Thanks.
How are folks feeling about that one?
Oh. Oh, yeah, sorry, others.
All the way to the left.
All right, how do y'all feel about that? Okay. Let's look back down, what else we got? Yeah, non-discrimination statements. Maybe a standalone, okay, move that to its own column. Thank you. Prohibit camping at public safety properties. So. That, say so, that's the one.
The second from the left.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's go back down. Place designated by camping type. Okay. Everyone like that one? Okay, let's go back down. All right, interface with HOAs and CC and Rs. Okay, other jurisdictions or zones? Other jurisdictions?
Just meaning how it interacts with other legal and policy type of.
Stop.
You can have an HOA at CTNRs, but you also be holding to zones, like if you have in land use. I mean, remember, I don't know if you were involved when we were dealing with a neighborhood that was a halfway house that was going in. And I can't remember if they had an HOA or a CCNR, but yeah, and that's where that, it's not even a gray line, it's like CCNR and HOA, it's a whole nother ballgame. They are under certain zones, but.
Okay. All this sounds really confusing to me. I don't know what any of that means. That will go wherever you'll.
Other agencies and partners. Other agencies and partners to establish rules and criteria that provide into this. So that's like the clarification of public rights of way. Is, are we talking about city rights of way? Because there are county and state rights of way in here that in our city limits that we need to make sure they're on the same page as we are. So I think the HOA in Washington County at kind of the same thing, or how are these codes mixing and do we create a conflict between some of those? Or how are we going to, who takes precedence? So is it the city code or is it the HOA? Do they, and I would guess, yeah, and I would guess in this case that the HOA, it would be allowed under code, but the HOA could still prohibit.
So it should be in.
That made even less sense.
You know, I think you can say.
All right. Other jurisdiction. I'm hearing other jurisdictions. Okay. All right. Start disposal requirements. Sanitation. Okay, thank you. Folks feeling good about that? Okay, scroll down, who verifies camps are safe? Definitions? Definitions? A little bit of there. Head nods. All right. Couple more down there, and I think we have a few on the right as well. So limit camping proximity within business hours. Zones? Zones. These head nods, okay. Cool. Let's go down. Last one here, plan for restroom type and location. Sanitation. Okay, and then going to the left there. All right, define trailers. Emissions, mindful for cooking alternatives.
And safety.
Safety, sanitation.
So like the corporate calls it she, right? Stand is a safety, health, and environment. That's what like our third category column is.
Okay, so that's that third row right there. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. All right. So in a perfect world, we would have been seeing this whole screen, you can see those emblems at the top there, they're very easy to sort it. Say, oh, what have been doing, people in the band, like, I'm seeing about her. All right, so we're already kind of doing this a little bit, but as you're looking at these, right? Let's zoom in on that first category. And I want to make sure folks like that world category. Do we think these go together? So we've got education and communication, inclusive and common language, define any public right of way, identify all stakeholders, include the houseless community, update the point in time numbers, clarify public versus private property, define unreasonable risk, identify all that advocate. Who verifies camps are safe, define trailers, define the time of day, and define nuisance. Do we feel like those all go, or is there something there that doesn't match?
The question for the identification of stakeholders and advocates, is that for the post-ordinance implementation, like that they're going to be part of the monitoring, or is this for education ahead of time?
The question is who, okay.
So I think in the original ordinance, it says whereas, and it identifies, be really clear, deliberate on who the ordinance is for. So could the ordinance be used as part of a nonprofit? If community actions to go ahead and open up a campsite, they would base it on the city ordinances to be within the law of the city, of course, but then they have their own, right? But we want to identify, it may or may not belong in this, but that's where we were coming from. Who are the stakeholders? And one of them was the CEOs and nonprofit agencies.
Okay, all right, so let's looking at that first category. It seems like we're all like going with those being in that category, that column.
Is include houseless community outreach?
Who's what's that?
In all the meetings that I did with the ordinance, or that we all did with the ordinance, we really didn't identify the targeted audience or the community impacted, which was the houseless community. That's where we were coming from.
So it does fit there. Okay, cool. All right, that second column. Limit camping proximity within business hours. Clarity of manageable numbers, property and dwelling limit. Prohibit camping at public safety property, permitted locations of public right of way, place designated by type, flexible based on zone in regards to time, and then clear yes zones. We feel like those all go together.
The public safety.
What is a public safety property? Who, which group? Okay. We all feel like those all fit together. Okay. Next category is background checks, or next column, background checks for residential camping, include environmental protections, mindful for heating, cooking alternatives, include direction for proper waste removal, sharps disposal requirements, planning for sanitation, and plan for restrooms, restroom types and locations. Do we all think that those go together?
The umbrella, some of those would just say public health and say public health, safety.
That's, yeah, will be umbrella.
Do one right for you, Mark.
We will be umbrella. All right, this next four. Include supervision at sanctioned campsites. Consider options of mobility concern. Plan for access to service and daytime school adoption. We feel like those are related.
If they're related, but maybe yeah.
Elaborate, please.
If we're talking about supervision as in personnel that are supervising the sanctioned campsites, that's probably for safety reasons. It's probably not for service reasons, unless it is, and then perhaps we should rewrite it.
Okay. That one at the top there, talking about supervision, was that about safety or was that about service? Safety. Okay, so do you think it doesn't fit in that grouping then? Safety. Which is that? This one? Okay. Our folks feeling about that? Okay. All right. Well, the one to the right. Let's talk about HOAs, CCNRs. All right. Interfering with HOAs and CCNRs and then alignment with other jurisdictions. Those go together.
Including HOAs and CCNR neighborhoods.
I think that they're two different scopes because the intention of alignment with other jurisdictions means other cities and counties that border Hillsboro, and HOAs and CCNRs that is within Hillsboro. And so we're talking about two different things.
So would you all like that to be its own thing?
I feel like I need to clarify again, the HOA thing.
I'm not. No.
The intent was all to say that this would be overriding or including HOAs. It was a question. Just to make, just curious which one takes precedent. Tina's not here anymore, but to her point, the overarching idea being, how does this ordinance interface with all other policies, ordinances, and laws, which includes CCNR?
Be the last comment on this.
Just to cut to the chase about that. When, back in the day, with the HOA or CPNR neighborhood, you couldn't have a halfway house, you couldn't have more than a certain amount of people in a home. I mean, it was locked up. Being facetious, you couldn't in some neighborhoods have a pink flamingo. That's how strict it was. I'm just saying that when you have an HOA or a CCNR, those neighborhoods have their own world. And some of you that live in them, you know it. And that's just private. And they do have city services, but it is in a private area. The lawyer I spoke to 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that's what he reiterated to me. So it's a great topic. You have people that will be very vocal about this, so they honestly do not want to have unexpected circumstances come into the neighborhood. And that's one of the reasons why they have moved into neighborhoods, just saying.
I'm gonna move us past this. I'm sorry. I know less about the words after that conversation. I just feel like I know less. I don't know, like I don't know what. Invite us to an HOA. I think so. Please do not. Okay.
I say different calls because it does have to be explored.
Okay, so let's move that one that I don't ever want to see again. All right, perfect. So absolutely. All right, so and then we have non-discrimination statement. Does anyone feel like non-discrimination statements should be somewhere else? I feel like it should be almost the definition.
Like the definitions background.
Okay,
That's what I was thinking.
okay,
City had.
okay. There we go. Okay, so being mindful of time, recognizing there's 5 minutes left, so we are not gonna get through the rest of this process. I want to tell you about the rest of the process. If you can zoom out a little bit, David, so we can see kind of the whole thing. All right, so essentially the next step in this the next step in this process is to basically change those emblems at the top. Change those emblems at the top with words, right? 3 to 5 words, categories, right? We're not going to do that today. We don't have time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to give this to the draft writers so that they can come up with those categories, right? And these categories are the things that this group can come up with for council to, for the draft writers to update the draft ordinance for council. Right, does that make sense? Okay.
Can you just clarify, is there a council meeting between this meeting and the next time we get together?
There was 2 council meetings.
Where something's gonna be proposed?
Yes.
Because I don't feel like we got into the nitty gritty of actual, because as we went through so many questions. Seriously, I'm so loud.
It's not for you, it's for the people at home.
I apologize. Because I feel like as we were going through it, so many questions came up that this hasn't actually helped us identify. That aren't gonna be now in those meetings.
Okay, so.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great questions for clarification. So we started this process. We are at the consult level of the spectrum of community engagement, right? Which means that the consideration of this group is going to be taken into account, but ultimate decision of this falls within city council. And so what we're doing here is gathering information about what you feel based on that workshop question, right? Can you go back to the slide with the workshop? Which was something like what could improve this ordinance. Yeah. So what updates this draft ordinance to clarify it with such considerations for time, place, and manner. So that information, those answers, what we just worked on, that's going to the draft writers, the ordinance writers, who are then going to take that information, update the draft ordinance with this now community input. And the data, if you can go forward, like, I don't know, 4 slides, I think, one more. Yes. So you see the what's next down there at the bottom. That's going to go, it's going to go to the draft writers, who are then taking the current draft, current format, taking all the stuff that we just came up with, taking that into consideration and updating it, and then taking that to city council. City council is then going to say, we like this, we like this, we like this, we don't like this, we don't like this, right? Change this, change this, change this. Back to the draft writers. Back.
They're doing that in work sessions.
Not good. And then once that final piece, they're gonna finalize at that May 16th council session. And then we will meet again after that.
So my concern, so one of my suggestions was the alignment with the other ordinances. That's, everyone understands what I'm saying by that. Something I learned, and everyone needs to go get a clean water services tour because it was so informational just being with her for 15 minutes, is that if our friends are chopping down the trees, that actually affects the permit that Clean Water Services had, because the water has to be at a certain temperature or it goes out of compliance. That's not something I would have known until today, and it's really beneficial information. But that tidbit that we put in there, the draft writers are not going to go, oh, that's why, because Clean Water Service X, Y, Z, when actually it's a really key piece to what we're doing. So that's what I'm wondering is, and I don't know what the answer is, by the way.
Yeah, so when it comes to the ordinance language, I'm not an expert, right? That's not something that I have in ordinance writing and things along those lines. And so if that's something that you feel needs to be in the actual ordinance, email that to me and I can get that to the draft writers, right? But ultimately, this group has come up with all those things. Hopefully, we were gonna be able to get to actually naming those categories. We just didn't have time for it today. And then after that 16th, that May 16th council session, we're gonna meet again. I think it's May 26th or May 29th. I think May 26th. And we're gonna come back here and report back on what the council ultimately decided on, how your input was utilized, and then we're gonna see how we can best get the information about this ordinance update into the community that we all serve.
And that just clarified something. So I'm a little concerned if the council is going to vote or approve something before we've really concluded. And that's what concerned me. So what recourse do we have coming back, just okaying what they okayed?
So
That, to me, that's not enough.
council is voting in June on this. So
They must be worse.
yes, so they're seeing it twice. And then it's going for their first hearing or first reading and second hearing in June.
You just made a generous offer that we can email you. So is that okay if we go through this and have specific things that don't make sense or whatever, we can just email you and you'll.
You're welcome to. I'm gonna send it to the draft writers.
Right.
And yeah,
And then question, because I don't know enough about it, at the work sessions, do they take public comment?
Oh, that's, you just said from the emails and that, email Marcus and CC. Do that. City council at.
Okay. Email Marcus and CC City Council.
You can always go to a meeting and talk.
yeah, those meetings are gonna be May 2nd and May 16th.
It's clearly within your rights to do that. I just don't know that procedurally it makes a lot of sense for everyone in here to have just comments on this, copy the whole council, just throw it out there. It's not typically how anybody would do it. It's clearly within your rights.
I just say when Kim was here. Especially.
Well, it is CO2. I thank you all for your time. Sorry we ran a little bit over and sorry about the lunch shenanigans. But appreciate you all and we'll see you in a little over a month. Thank you.
For running. I mean, I think it was stuff in our group too, that like, we didn't get up there, so here's all of our notes. I don't know what.
Come on.
But it's all that. Always want to help. I was saying, add back a version with her comments already.
And I've sent that and yeah.
Any help with anything? Sure.
Yeah.
So